Cabo the Great stepped into the stone chamber where the fallen had been prepared. The air was still, heavy, filled with the scent of oil and ash. It was cold, colder than the mountain winds that swept through their fortress. And yet, he felt heat rising inside him, a burning in his chest that had nothing to do with fire and everything to do with grief. They lay on slabs of stone, one beside the other, still, silent. Brothers, warriors, men he had laughed with, trained and led into battle. They slept peacefully, but Cabo knew better. He walked slowly, his boots sounding too loud in the room that demanded reverence. His eyes moved over each of them. He whispered their names, lips trembling. These men would never speak again, would never draw a sword, would never see another dawn. A pain so deep bloomed in his chest he couldn't breathe. It choked him, gripped his ribs like iron, and brought him to his knees. He leaned back against the wall and then, slowly, slid down until he sat on the cold floor, his arms resting on his knees, his head dropped low. He didn't cry, but something broke inside him. He had failed. He had planned the assault. He had led the strategy. He had placed them there, and now they were gone. He had not seen the strike coming. He should have. He should have known the snake people would retaliate, and now the cost had been blood, the kind of blood that couldn't be replaced. "Goddess," he whispered, voice raw and shaking. "I do not know how to carry the burden of this. I am strong, but this is too much." He sat there for a long time, eyes closed, feeling the weight of every mistake pressed down on him. Then, slowly, he stood. His knees were stiff, his legs heavy, but he walked out of the chamber, out of the fortress. He walked without direction, without thought, driven by something older than memory. The trees whispered as he passed. The stars above blinked with cold indifference. He walked deeper into the forest until he came to the place, the very clearing where, not long ago, they had received their power. It was here the goddess had first touched them, had ordained them hunters, had set them on the path of war. You are watching the Tales of the Savannah. Subscribe and be part of the tribe. Now let's get back to the story. He stepped into the center and fell to his knees once more, this time not from grief, but from reverence. "I am not enough," he said aloud, the words trembling on his lips. "I thought I was, but I am not." And then she came, not with sound, not with light, but with presence. One moment the clearing was empty, the next she was there. She stood tall, her form glowing with soft fire, her skin like molten bronze, her eyes the color of stars before they are born. Her hair floated as though caught in water, and her robes whispered with the voice of the universe. Cabo felt her power before he saw her. He could not look directly at her, so he bowed his head to the ground. "I have failed them," he said. "I brought them death. I led them into it. I told them they would live." Her voice, when it came, was the sound of many, echoes layered upon echoes, like thunder beneath water. "You have not failed, Cabo, you have awakened. Leadership is not forged in victory, it is tempered in loss. You grieve because you love. You break because you carry their weight. This is the cost of command. But hear me now, for I will give you what you seek." A gust of wind burst through the trees, a flame ignited in the air, spinning, crackling, dancing before Cabo's eyes. It took the shape of a circle of fire, hovering in midair. "These men who died, they are not just fallen, they are returning. Tomorrow you will give them the first right of the hunters. You will burn them not in shame, but in honor. For through fire, their spirit will rise to me. Through flame, I will carry them into the stars. You will place each body on a pyre. Beneath them, the wood of the sacred blood tree. At dusk, you will light the fire with your own hands. Only you. For their souls followed your command, and their release must come through you. You will chant these words as the flames rise." Cabo closed his eyes as the words imprinted into his mind like ink to skin. His heart beat stronger, his spine straightened. "I see it now. I feel it," Cabo whispered. The goddess stepped closer. "And I will give you more." She raised her hand. The ground trembled. The air shifted. Light poured from her, and as it reached him, something opened inside him, an ancient space he didn't know existed. He felt her power enter him, not violently, but like a tide coming home. Memories that weren't his flooded through him, songs in languages he didn't speak, battles fought before the sun was born, hunters he had never met. When she stepped back, fading into the stars, Cabo stood upright, taller than before, his heart steadied, his grief now forged into something harder than sorrow. The goddess then spoke. "You were not chosen to lead because you were flawless. You were chosen because you would carry the fire. Now go, Cabo the Great. Let them burn like kings and send their souls back home." He turned toward the path. Dawn was not far. Tomorrow would not be the end. It would be the beginning of legacy. The long road back to the stronghold felt heavier than ever before. Sia walked at the front, the small urn of ashes cradled in his hands like a fragile truth he dared not drop. Each step forward felt like a betrayal. Behind him, the hunters marched in grim silence. Tendai was the last in line, his boots dragging, his shoulders tense. His mind was an endless storm, his father's betrayal, his mother's face, the blood, the snake, and the silence. The silence was unbearable. Malaika walked in the middle of the hunters, her arms folded tightly around herself, as if trying to keep something from spilling out. Her feet moved with the group step by step, but her thoughts were far away, buried deep in the silence between each breath. Her stomach churned again, not from hunger, not from exhaustion. It was something else, something deeper. She hadn't told anyone. Not yet. Not even him. She pressed a hand gently against her lower belly, just for a moment, just long enough to feel the truth beneath her skin. She was late. Her body was changing, and the nausea, the heaviness, the way the scent of the campfire had made her dizzy the night before. She knew. She had known for 2 days now, and now she walked, surrounded by brothers, feeling completely alone. Tendai hadn't spoken to her since that night. He had left her standing there. She looked up ahead. The stronghold gates were in sight now. Just a few more minutes, just a few more steps. Then she would see the healer. She had to be sure, but in her heart she already was. She was carrying his child, and she didn't even know who he was anymore. As they reached the gates of the stronghold, the guards didn't cheer. There were no songs, no drums, no chants of honor, just the creaking of the heavy gates and the hollow sound of boots on stone. The weight of a brother's death hung over them like a dark cloud. They entered the halls not as warriors returning from battle, but as mourners carrying a ghost. Sia didn't waste time. He broke away from the group, walking straight toward the chamber of the High Hunter Cabo. Inside, Cabo sat behind a thick wooden desk, scribbling over reports. When Sia entered, Cabo's head lifted sharply, his eyes narrowed. The moment their eyes met, Cabo knew. "Who did we lose?" he asked, his voice steady but tight. Sia swallowed hard, his throat dry. "Kudu." Cabo's breath hitched, just slightly. His face remained calm, but the loss hit him like a blade. "And Malaika?" he asked quickly, eyes flaring. Sia shook his head. "She's alive." Cabo let out a breath and stood slowly. "Tell me everything." Sia stepped forward, placing the small urn on the table. His voice cracked as he spoke. "The hunter followed the trail of a small group of snake people, alone. We were already at Snake Island in the village. He must have gone ahead. We found him near the river. There was blood, a lot of it. No sign of a struggle. It must have been fast." "And no one saw it happen?" Cabo asked sharply. "No, sir." "You did the rites?" Sia nodded. "Yes, sir." Cabo stared at the urn, silent. His jaw clenched. Then, without looking up, he said, "And the others? They all agree with this version of events?" Sia's hands twitched at his sides. Cabo saw it. There was a pause. Sia's mouth opened, closed. Then finally, "Yes, they agree." Cabo's gaze was like fire. It burned through Sia's words, searching for the truth beneath them. He walked around the desk slowly, the tension in the room thick. "There will be an inquiry," Cabo said, his voice low and hard. "A hunter's death is never left to guesswork. I understand. When a hunter falls, the truth must stand taller than the silence, and if there is a lie buried beneath these ashes—" He paused, stepping closer, locking eyes with Sia. "Then the fire will burn more than just wood." Sia nodded, though his heart pounded violently in his chest. "Is there anything you want to tell me before the inquiry?" Cabo asked, now standing just a foot away. "Anything your soul needs to confess, son?" Sia's lips trembled. The weight of the moment pressed into his spine. He could feel the truth clawing at his throat. Tendai's silence, the dagger, the blood, Palesa. He almost spoke. Almost. But instead he bowed his head. "No, sir. It happened as I told you." Cabo stared at him a moment longer, then gave a slow nod. "Very well," he said. "That will be all for now. When the time comes, you will speak again, and if your words don't match your truth, the Brotherhood will know." Sia bowed once more, turned, and left the room. The door closed behind him like a final warning. And in the hall, as he walked back to join the others, his hands still trembled. Because the truth wasn't in the urn. It was walking beside him, staring at the floor, lost in thoughts no one dared ask about. It was his son, the witness to the betrayal. Tendai would be called, and when he was, the world might never be the same again. Zoro had come out to welcome Sia and Tendai. His heart lifted at the sight of them returning through the gates. But something was wrong. They didn't walk together. Sia moved with his head bowed, eyes dark, his feet heavy with purpose. Zoro didn't need to guess. He was going to see Cabo, but Tendai was drifting, his steps slow and aimless, retreating to the chambers without a word. Zoro frowned, unsettled. He had known both men long enough to sense when something had broken, and something had broken. He followed Tendai. By the time he reached the chambers, the door was already closed. He knocked softly, just once, and opened it. Tendai sat inside, his shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. He looked up, and the moment his gaze met Zoro's, something cracked. Recognition flickered across his face like a dying flame catching wind. "Grandfather," Tendai whispered, rushing into his arms. Zoro held him. The boy, no, the man, clung to him like he was the last solid thing left in a collapsing world. And then Tendai broke. His shoulders shook with sobs that came from a place deeper than pain, older than anger. It was grief, confusion, rage. Zoro said nothing. He held him tighter. When Tendai finally pulled away, his face streaked with tears, his voice was barely holding together. "My life has been a lie, grandfather." Zoro stared at him. His chest tightened. "What has come over you, Tendai? What happened out there?" There was silence. Then, "I met my mother, Palesa." Zoro gasped. Tendai didn't miss the shift in his eyes, that flicker of recognition, that stillness. It was all he needed. "You knew," Tendai said, stepping back, his voice cracking. "You knew the truth." Zoro opened his mouth, but the words wouldn't come. "You knew what she was, this whole time." Zoro's jaw tightened. "Tendai, you were young. Everything happened so fast. It was a different time then. You—" "Don't," Tendai snapped, his voice rising. "Don't give me that. You could have told me. You should have told me." Zoro looked down, ashamed. "And you know what the worst part is?" Tendai's voice broke. "Father killed a hunter to protect her, a brother, and he's lying about it. And now I don't know what to do." He wiped his face with shaking hands. "Why didn't you tell me? If you had told me, if I had known—" His voice faded, overtaken by the silence in the room. Zoro stood still, helpless. "Get out," Tendai whispered. Zoro blinked. "Tendai, get out, grandfather. You and father are liars." He gritted his teeth, lowering his voice. "You are as good as dead to me," he growled. Zoro gasped. He took one step back, then another. And then Tendai slammed the door behind him. Tendai stood in the quiet, the echoes of truth still ringing in his chest. And now, as Zoro stood on the other side, staring at the slammed door, the weight of Tendai's words pressed down on him like a falling sky. Tendai had met Palisa, and Sia had killed a brother, a hunter, a sworn member of the Brotherhood. What in the heavens? His mind raced, heart thudding in his chest like a war drum. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't a poor decision made in the heat of battle. This was treason, and it had come from his own son. Zoro leaned his hand against the doorframe, breathing hard, the edges of his vision blurring with panic. The Brotherhood had survived beasts, plagues, and wars, but betrayal from within. This would tear them apart. If this came to light, and it always did, Cabo would call a council. There would be an inquiry, an interrogation, and Sia. Zoro closed his eyes. This was going to be a disaster, a firestorm, a reckoning, and in the center of it stood his blood, his son, and now, his grandson, caught between truth and loyalty. Zoro turned away from the door slowly, his face pale, his jaw clenched. He would have to act quickly, before the truth burned them all. Above the realm of mortals, the gods watched. The hunter goddess leaned forward on her throne, her eyes narrowed, locked on the scene below. The forest god stood tall, calling upon the ancient forces buried in the roots of time and the stars above. He pulled energy from the wind, from the earth, from the very bones of the forest, and forged it into a crackling sphere of light. He whispered words lost to all but the divine, and then he hurled it toward Nandi. It tore through the trees like lightning, leaves ignited, the earth burned in its wake. The hunter goddess flinched. Nandi was one of hers. Her blood carried the legacy of the hunters. But this chaos, this beast, this colossal snake would destroy everything if it reached the village. She clenched her jaw. "Please, let this work," she muttered. Because if it didn't, the secret would spill, and that secret would burn the hunters from the inside out. On the opposite end of the divine veil, the snake goddess lounged in the coils of a great ethereal serpent, her skin glowing like moonlight on river water. She too watched, but not with fear, with pleasure. If Nandi broke through, if she reached the village in this form, if the truth came out, it would unravel the hunters completely. Their arrogance, their lies, their ancient oaths. "Let her fall upon them," the snake goddess whispered, eyes gleaming. "Let the truth bleed into the soil." But then her eyes darted to the forest god. She admired him. He had never chosen a side, only the balance. If he succeeded in stopping Nandi, he would preserve that balance. She could live with that too. Either way, she smiled. She would have enjoyed a great show. Back on Earth, Diallo and Kwame could do nothing but watch. The ball of divine light screamed toward the serpent form of Nandi. She hissed and reared back, the heat of the coming strike reflecting in her golden eyes. The ground beneath her cracked open. She tried to flee, but it was too late. It struck her like thunder. The ground cracked beneath her. Light spiraled into a dome, forming a shimmering field of force. Nandi screeched and twisted, but she was trapped in place. Her body was still ablaze with fury, her coils writhing, her mouth wide in a silent scream. But she could not move. She was held, not in pain, but in containment. The fire inside her heart still pulsed, aching to reach the village, to release. Her golden eyes locked onto the trees ahead, and her entire form vibrated. She wanted to run. She wanted to burn everything. But the forest god stepped forward, and his voice, low and deep and thunderous, echoed across every leaf, every stone, every soul. "Awake." The trees shivered, the wind stopped, and from the shadows of the deepest part of the forest, something ancient stirred. A second serpent's hiss echoed through the trees. Kwame turned, heart racing. "What was that?" From deep within the forest, another presence was stirring. Something darker, something older. The guardian gasped. "It's him." "Who?" Diallo asked. But she was too stunned to speak. From the shadows, the trees parted, and an ancient, decayed serpent emerged, twice the size of Nandi. Its eyes glowed. It was the spirit of the first serpent, unbound, forgotten, and now awakened. Nandi turned, eyes locked on the beast. The serpent of Tendai, bigger than Nandi, older, wiser. His body coiled through the forest like a river of onyx and ash. His eyes glowed with the dim light of buried suns. His breath stirred the treetops, and every living creature within the forest bowed their heads. Even the guardian fell to her knees. Tendai, the first of them, the ancestor, the spirit of the ancient pact, the one who had once been human and had become legend, the first of their kind. Nandi froze in his presence. He did not strike. He only looked at her. Then his voice came, not spoken, but echoed through the soul.
Nandi, you are the guardian of the secret, the blood that burns within your veins. It is mine. Long before your breath met this world, I walked it. I too carried the serpent. I too raged beneath the weight of truth. I know what it is to want to tear the sky apart just to be understood. But hear me now, child of fire. There is honor in carrying the burden that no one sees. There is dignity in protecting what must remain hidden. Not out of shame, but because some truths are too powerful to live in the light. If you rise against the snake people, you will fracture the world that made you. The hunters will break, the serpent line will fall, and everything we have guarded for generations will become nothing. Nandi, the serpent in you is not a curse, it is a covenant, and with it comes more than power, it comes with purpose. You are the flame that must warm, not burn. You are not here to destroy the path, you are here to guard it. I learned this through blood, through silence, through loss. You don't have to. Let go of the rage, take hold of your legacy, and remember this, Nandi. We are not monsters. We are the bridge between worlds. You are not the first, you are not alone, and you are not lost unless you choose to be.
Her great serpent eyes glistened. Her breath slowed, and then tears rolled down from glowing eyes, vanishing into the scales below. The fire flickered, the rage dimmed, and then the field around her shattered into golden mist. Her body collapsed, gracefully, gently, not broken, but dissolved, until she was only Nandi once more, breathless on the forest floor. The forest god said nothing. He only nodded his head to Tendai. The equilibrium had been restored. He vanished like mist, leaving only leaves rustling in his wake. Tendai, the ancient serpent, turned his gaze toward Diallo and Kwame, his massive form stilled, his golden eyes glowing not with fury, but with something deeper, recognition, pride, sorrow. His gaze rested on both men, hunter and snake, bound by blood, divided by time, yet standing side by side. They were the living proof that his sacrifice had not been in vain, that his secret, once carried alone, now lived in others, survived. For a moment, the weight of centuries swirled inside him, every exile, every silence, every ache for connection. And then Malaika. Her name whispered across his ancient mind like wind through tall grass. He saw her smile again, felt her warmth, and for the first time in an eternity, he allowed himself to feel joy. Tendai's jaw softened. He smiled, a quiet, knowing smile, the kind only the ancient can wear. And slowly he bowed his great head to the two before him, the sons of his legacy, the keepers of his truth. No words were spoken, none were needed. And then, with the grace of something divine, he turned. The forest opened, and the great serpent slipped into the shadows, vanishing like a memory, like myth, but the earth would remember, and so would they. The forest was still. Nandi lay in Diallo's arms, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she was at peace. And that, my dear tribe, is the end of another episode in our Snake vs. Hunter series. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. In this week's episode, Cabo the Great faces a tough time leading after losing some of their hunters. These hunters were not lost in battle. but during their duty to protect the water from the snake people. It's been a heavy loss, but the hunter goddess gives them a gift and a tradition, a way to honor their fallen that will be remembered for generations. Tendai, Sia, and the team walk back from their patrol, but the village is quiet. There's no song or welcome. They carry the urn of their fallen brother, and Malaika carries something else. A secret, one she hasn't told anyone yet. Cabo doesn't believe Sia's version of what happened. He's suspicious. There will be questions, an investigation. And now that Zoro knows the truth, he knows that the bond between the brothers is at risk. Far away, in the skies, the hunter goddess and the snake goddess watch. They wait to see if Nandi will reach the village. But the forest god stops her, and then something unexpected happens. He calls on the ancient serpent of Tendai. The serpent wakes up and speaks to Nandi. In that powerful moment, Tendai is able to calm her. Tendai is proud that his story still lives on. He bows and disappears. And for the first time ever, Nandi feels free. A heartfelt thank you goes to a friend of the channel, Angel, for your generous super chat. Your support means the world to me. But even more than that, your message moved me deeply. The way you described feeling every emotion, how the stories brought you comfort through pain and made you feel truly seen, I was honestly at a loss for words. It means everything to know that these tales have touched your spirit and helped carry you through difficult times. I'm honored to be part of your journey, and I don't take that connection for granted. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. May the gods you hold dear bless you with peace, strength, and joy. Want to support the channel and become an even bigger part of our tribe? You can join for as little as the cost of a coffee each month. Your support helps me continue creating the content you love, but of course, just having you here is already more than enough. Thank you for being part of this journey. A warm and heartfelt thank you to all the amazing tribe members who have chosen to join and support this incredible journey. Your belief in this channel means the world to me, and I'm so glad to have you along for the ride. And as always, thank you for watching our story, and we hope you enjoyed it. What lessons did you draw from this story? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and be part of the tribe. Thank you for watching The Tales of the Savannah. We will see you next time in the Savannah.